You don't need a mansion or a Hollywood name to leave behind a story that's more than just fame.
Me to need a will, just a family, or a cat plotting world domination. Welcome to Celebrity Estate Chaos, where we prove a lot of things. Like how estate chaos isn't just for millionaires with private islands, anyone with stuff, relatives, or that one weird collection you think nobody's fighting over. And chances are, they will.
Okay, so let's unpack this. When O.J. Simpson passed away back in April of 2024, it wasn't long before the headlines, well, they went straight to the money, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. That huge, decades-old civil judgment owed to the families of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman.
Yeah.
His death just threw that whole unresolved financial mess right back into the spotlight.
Yeah, and it wasn't just, morbid curiosity.
No, not at all. His passing immediately brought up these really critical questions. Like, what did he actually leave behind? Any assets? And, would the people who'd been chasing that judgment for so long finally see any of it? It's a really complex, legally tangled situation.
Absolutely. And that's kind of our mission for this deep dive. We've been looking at various sources, articles, digging into the legal side, reports on what little is known about his final finances.
Right.
And we're also weaving in some practical insights sort of drawn from the work of author Tina Ginn on estate planning.
Tina Ginn. Yeah, her books like Dead Funny, Don't Let Your Will Be the Family Mystery Thriller, Dividing the Pie. Even The Cat Gets the Couch. They have this surprisingly relevant, sometimes funny wisdom, even for something this, dramatic.
Exactly. So our goal here is to cut through the noise, understand the core financial and legal issues OJ's estate is facing.
Yeah, explore what we know and maybe what we don't know about his final wishes, his assets.
And crucially, pull out those valuable lessons hiding in this whole situation so you can maybe avoid similar chaos with your own legacy, no matter the size.
That's the key takeaway, isn't it? Learning from this.
So, okay, OJ's life story, obviously long, very complicated, but for this deep dive into his estate, the really key part kicks off around 1997.
Right, after the acquittal in the criminal trial.
Yes. He was found liable in the civil trial, the one brought by the Goldman and Brown families, and that led to this massive $33.5 million judgment against him.
And that civil judgment, that's the ghost that's basically haunted his finances ever since. A civil judgment, it's essentially a court order saying, you owe this person or these people this much money.
Totally separate from the not guilty verdict in the criminal case.
Exactly. Two different standards of proof. So legally, he was required to pay this huge sum.
But, for years, it seems like he managed to avoid paying much of it at all. And our sources, they really point to his move to Florida as a big factor there.
That's right. Florida has certain laws that are pretty well known for protecting specific kinds of assets from civil creditors.
Like what kinds of assets?
Well, the most famous is probably the homestead exemption, protecting your main home. But critically, in OJ's case, sources suggest his NFL pension and his Screen Actors Guild pension were also largely shielded under Florida law.
Wait, hang on. So even with a $33.5 million judgment against him, he could live in Florida and his pensions were, legally untouchable. How does that even work?
Well, Florida law makes it pretty difficult for civil creditors, people trying to collect on a judgment like that, to seize certain types of assets. Things like qualified retirement accounts, pensions.
Wow.
The idea partly is to make sure people aren't left completely, destitute. So even though he owed this enormous amount, those specific income streams were, according to reports, legally off limits to the families trying to collect.
Wow. Okay, that really shows how complex these legal protections can be and how they can impact even really high-profile cases like this one.
Definitely.
So this judgment, the protected assets in Florida, that was his financial reality for decades, right? Even through the later stuff like the Las Vegas robbery incident in 2007 and his prison time.
Yes, exactly. The judgment remained mostly unpaid. It was this significant debt just sitting there on his ledger, even as his life took, more dramatic turns.
Yeah.
So when he got out of prison in 2017, he went back to Florida.
Yeah.
And the whole situation with the judgment and those protected assets, it pretty much just picked up where it left off.
Okay. Which brings us right up to April 10th, 2024. He passes away. And immediately, the focus snaps back. What happens to the money now? Can the Goldman family finally collect from his estate?
That is the $33.5 million question, isn't it? And reports surfaced almost immediately that OJ did have something called a revocable living trust.
Okay, let's pause there. A revocable living trust. What exactly is that, and why is it important here?
So think of a trust like a legal box.
Yeah.
You put your assets, your house, bank accounts, whatever, into this box during your lifetime. You
Okay.
usually manage it yourself as the trustee. And it's revocable because while you're alive, you can change it, you can add things, take things out, even cancel the whole thing.
And the point.
The main goal often is to avoid probate.
Avoid probate. What's probate? Is that like court stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Probate is the legal process
Yeah.
supervised by a court that happens after someone dies.
Yeah.
Its job is to validate their will if they have one, make a list of everything they owned, pay off their debts and taxes, and then distribute whatever's left to the right people, the heirs or beneficiaries. It can take a long time, it's public record, and it can be expensive.
Ah, okay. So assets properly put inside a trust usually get to skip that whole probate process.
That's the idea. They bypass probate.
Got it. So having a trust, that sounds like generally a good thing, smoother, more private. But in OJ's case, the sources say his trust's contents are sealed.
Right. And that's one of the big question marks. According to what we're reading, we know he had a trust, but we don't know what was actually in it when he died. Is it fully funded? Did he actually transfer significant assets into it? And really critically, who did he name as the beneficiary for whatever was in that trust?
Okay, and this is where maybe the specific lessons for you, the listener, start coming into focus, right?
Absolutely.
Because just having a trust isn't the whole story if it's not used right or documented clearly.
Precisely. Lesson number one, maybe, from this whole OJ situation. Having a plan, whether it's a will or a trust, that's just the beginning.
Right.
Your plan needs to be, complete. It needs to clearly say what you want, and it needs to be actionable. If your trust documents are sealed or locked away somewhere,
Yeah.
you absolutely need to make sure the person you put in charge knows where they are, what needs to happen, who needs to be told. Don't leave it like a mystery novel, as Tina Ginn might say. You don't want your plan to be a locked box with no key.
Makes sense. And speaking of someone being in charge, another thing that seemed missing, at least initially from the public view, was a clearly named executor or trustee stepping up.
Yes. Another huge potential red flag in any estate situation.
Yeah.
An executor that's for a will or a successor trustee for a trust that's the person legally designated to handle everything after you're gone.
Okay.
They deal with the assets, pay the debts, hand out the inheritances. If nobody is clearly named, or if the person named isn't willing or able to do it, or maybe doesn't even know they were named,
Then what?
then the court might have to step in and appoint someone.
Yeah.
And that just adds delay, cost, and a whole lot of uncertainty.
So, lesson number 2, crystal clear. Name your executor or trustee. Make sure they're capable, willing, and please tell them you've chosen them. Don't let it be some surprise reveal in a lawyer's office like in the movies.
Right. It's not supposed to be a dramatic plot twist. It's a practical necessity.
Absolutely.
And tying back to that civil judgment and the Florida laws, even with protected assets like pensions, OJ's estate still has to face this massive outstanding debt.
Okay, so the protection doesn't just make the dead vanish.
No. While those specific protected assets might remain shielded even after death, depending on the specifics of Florida law and how they pass any other assets, things that maybe weren't put into the trust or were protected in some other way, those could potentially be pursued by the Goldman family to try and satisfy that judgment.
Okay. Which leads us, I guess, to lesson 3, just looking at how incredibly complicated this is. You really need to understand your whole financial picture, right? Your debts, potential liabilities, and how different assets get treated legally. Just relying on, legal loopholes for some things without a clear, organized plan for everything can still leave a huge mess.
It really can. It forces these complicated, often painful legal battles after you're gone. Adds stress, costs money.
And part of understanding that picture is being honest about what you own and where it is, isn't it? I mean, rumors about hidden assets followed OJ for years.
They did. And while we don't know the truth there, the situation really highlights how important it is to just create a clear inventory of what you have.
So, lesson number 4 then, make a list. Bank accounts, investments, real estate, insurance policies, maybe even important personal items.
Yes, and tell your executor where to find that list and the important documents. Your family shouldn't have to go on some kind of scavenger hunt when they're already grieving.
Right. Tina Ginn talks about this too, doesn't she? How even figuring out who gets specific furniture or collections can cause massive fights if you don't spell it out.
Oh, absolutely. Don't let the division of your Tupperware collection tear your family apart, right? Specify things.
Good advice. Ultimately, this whole O.J. Simpson estate saga, when you look past the headlines, it's just a really powerful example of what can happen when complex financial baggage meets potentially unclear, maybe incomplete estate planning.
It really is. It shows how unresolved issues from your past, like a huge civil judgment, they don't just merrily disappear when you die.
No, they become your estate's problem to deal with.
Exactly. And it shows how even if you have legal protections for some assets, the lack of a really clear communicated plan for everything else can create enormous headaches for the people you leave behind.
For most of us, the numbers aren't going to be $33.5 million.
Probably not.
But the principles, they're exactly the same, aren't they? Your assets, your debts, your wishes, they all matter.
They do. And if you don't leave clear instructions, well, the state has default rules, which is probate, or you leave it to your grieving family to try and piece it all together. And that often leads to conflict, expense, and heartache.
So yeah, OJ's death makes headlines because of the history, the drama, the sheer scale of that judgment.
Mm-hmm.
But the core problems his estate seems to be facing, figuring out assets, dealing with debts, navigating the legal system, maybe a lack of clear instructions. These are surprisingly common issues that good estate planning is designed to prevent.
Don't let your legacy be defined by confusion or, worse, conflict. Planning your estate, it isn't just for the rich or famous. It's really an act of kindness, an act of responsibility towards your loved ones.
Well said. And if you are looking for guidance on this, something practical, accessible, maybe even, dare I say, humorous, a lot of the plain language wisdom we touched on today about, avoiding family mysteries and making sure your wishes are clear, it's very much informed by the work of Keenan. Her books, like Dead Funny, they offer tools, checklists, really relatable takes on everything from wills to dividing belongings.
Yeah, they're great resources. And you can find all of Tina Ginn's estate planning books through the bookstore link that'll be in the description for this deep dive. They're really designed to help you get started without feeling totally overwhelmed by legal jargon.
Good stuff. And hey, we want to hear from you too. If this deep dive into OJ's estate or really anything else has got you thinking about your own planning, whether it's about wills, trusts, executors, or just, making sure your cat gets the couch, send us your questions, your situations, your questions. They really help us figure out future deep dives.
Absolutely. Because think about it. OJ's estate is making headlines for all this drama. What kind of headlines or maybe just memories do you want to leave behind?
Yeah.
Will your legacy be one of thoughtful preparation, of clarity, or will it be a puzzle, a mystery for others to try and untangle? Really, the decisions you make today are the answer to that.
That's a wrap for today's chaos. If you learned something, laughed a little, or now feel slightly more prepared for life's curveballs, we've done our job. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media. Catch us on Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere podcasts make you rethink your to-do list. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, if it's important and unexpected, we probably cover it. Stay safe, stay curious, and we'll see you next time.